Guys, welcome to the podcast. I have a very, very special guest for you today. The rarity about this guest is that I've known her longer than I've known Janet. That's very, very rare for me to say, but I'm going to tell you the whole story. Now, Desiree is an amazing competitor. She's an amazing athlete, and comes to find out a friend of mine from almost 30 years ago, I would say, is also a world champion and one of the best at agility. And you guys know that Janet hooked me into agility. Janet got me doing it. I did not want to do it. And I really like it. It's a super, super fun sport. A lot of you guys are fans of agility. You've asked me a lot of questions, asked Janet a lot of questions. Now I'm bringing on a person who is world caliber. I mean, she's gonna be modest and she's probably not gonna tell you that, but she is one of the best in the world. And I'm gonna bring her on. Her name is Desiree Snelleman. She's right here. Desiree, thank you so much for doing this podcast.
I'm happy to do it. I was actually looking forward to it. So
Good.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. So do you want to tell the story how we met? I think it'd be funny if you told it.
No, I think you should go right ahead. I'd rather you take the lead on this one and then I'll step in.
Okay, was it 1989? Was it 89 or 90? I think it was 89, right?
You know, I am not 100% sure on that either. 89 maybe?
Okay, so
89. Let's say 89.
I think it was 89 because I just come back from Switzerland. Yeah. And Desiree, you were working at the Sports Club Irvine, which is part of the Sports Club company, which then became Equinox and Sports, all this. It was probably one of the biggest health clubs in the world, health club chains in the world, right?
Yeah. Yes, correct.
Okay. Now, back then I was teaching martial arts, and I was trying to take my very, very traditional martial arts and put it into a very modern environment, but I was very reluctant to. I talked to some people, and they said, talk to the Sports Club Irvine, and I went in, and lo and behold, I met you. And you had me do a class, right? We did a class, and it was like you and a couple other people, and Mike Yater, I think, was there that time. And and then you asked me all these technical questions about like ballistic stretching and static stretching and all these things, because you're like a guru. You're like always the top of what you do. And then you hired me to do the martial arts program, which then became a 10-year endeavor of my life, bringing martial arts to all the different sports clubs and everything. But because of you, I met Janet. I would not have been working there. I would have not have met her there. And my whole life would probably be, I could possibly be homeless if it wasn't for you. And single.
Oh, aren't you sweet? And single. That's the worst part.
And lonely, and terribly lonely. I mean, without Janet. I mean, you are really responsible for so much of my life. And we didn't even know it when we reconnected through agility.
That's right. Yeah. It was an incredible time because we were so, the sports club was really in the forefront of that industry. And to be there and then meet people like yourself, professionals, and you did an absolute phenomenal job there. It was so fun to watch. Martial arts is something I've never done myself, but I have great respect for the athletes and for the mind that goes behind it. So I'm really thankful for what you put into that. And, you know, we're no longer there, but what you did back then was amazing.
It was so much fun. I mean, you gave me an amazing opportunity in my life. And I think it worked out mutually well because we had the great program down there, and then it went to LA and it went all over. And I mean, martial arts, everything I do is kind of infused with martial arts. You know, you're an athlete. Tell me a little bit about your background before dog agility. What was your athletic background?
Well, growing up in Norway, I had a dad that was very athletic, a mom that was pretty athletic. Mom was from Norway, and dad Dutch. And, you know, my dad one day asked my brother, who seemed to be a troublesome guy, he said, do you want to do some sports? And he goes, no, I don't want to do that. And I just yanked him in the pants. And I said, you know what, I do. Can you take me somewhere? And so he said, what do you want to do? I said, well, how about track and field? So we went out and I started track and field, became a javelin thrower. And I did that for 15 years. Alongside with playing team handball. And team handball is a very popular European sport, not so popular here, unfortunately. I wish it would grow because it is a fantastic, exciting sport and, you know, a lot of goals to be made. and incredible athletes as well. But it never has taken off here. But there it did. And I played in the first league as a later teenager. So I traveled around to the different places for that. And then simultaneously with a dad that was very interested in tennis, I started playing tennis as well. And ultimately, that was one of the sports that I was going to try out for when I applied for San Diego State here in the U.S. And to see if I could get out. My experience was limited on the hard courts, and I'd had reconstructive surgeries. So it worked so well. So I went back to my sport of javelin or track and field, and then incorporated also, of course, rowing, which is a great sport. So that's kind of where it's gone. Yeah. And then from the rowing, it went on to outrigger canoeing. And I did that on a world championship twice.
Wow. Now, how old were you back then when you were, was it collegiate? Was it in college, or I used to never ask a woman her age. So I didn't mean to do that.
so the tennis was when I was younger, and I did coaching actually from when I was 18 years old as well. So both the javelin, tennis, and team handball was when I was 9 years old, and went till I moved to the United States when I was 24.
Wow.
Yeah. So I played them all.
That's amazing. So okay, so you're an American and an immigrant to this country from Norway, which is Jan and I have watched so much on Norway. What a spectacularly, amazingly beautiful country.
It is.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, there are a lot of things I miss about it. I frequently think about Norway, and I still can speak it relatively well in spite of being here so many years. And I stay in touch with my cousins and family and stuff. But in terms of the country, it is magnificent, absolutely magnificent. Yeah.
Have you seen the Netflix show Norseman?
No, I have not. Should I be?
I mean, yes, you should, because you have a great sense of humor. It is one of the, it's like Monty Python on crack. It's so fun. I mean, Europeans have much better sense of humor than Americans. Like I always love British humor.
Yeah.
And Europeans have great humor. I think you'll either love it and you'll call me and tell me how funny it was, or you will never speak to me again. It's definitely one of the two. But it's on Netflix, but watch it. It's really funny.
Yeah, I'll make sure I do that.
Yeah, put it on your list. It's definitely very, very funny.
Yeah, it's right on the top right now.
Okay, good. Yeah, there's a lot of, and there was the 12th Man was another one that was that dealt with Norway. It's about the World War II and this amazing journey of this guy. You should watch that. Those are definitely two movies. Now they're completely polar opposites. One is dirty bathroom humor, and one is an intense triumph of the will of human spirit, which is what I think you and I really understand because of our athletic and martial art type backgrounds. But definitely amazing film. The 12th Man was amazing. So anyway, you should see that. And give you some memories back to your home country, which again, spectacular.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm proud to be from there. So
yeah,
and I'm still a Norwegian citizen.
Right. Oh, cool.
So I haven't changed that yet. Yeah.
But you can have dual citizenship, right, with Norway?
That started this year. So I was considering doing that, and I probably will follow through with that.
Yeah, you should.
That's going to be for this year.
Swiss friends.
Yeah,
Swiss friends have dual citizenship. It's a much better way to do it.
Yeah.
So I think what's so fascinating is about your and my connection and our friendship. First of all, I've always told Janet how amazingly kind, and kind to me is like the greatest attribute a human being can have. You were to me, because when I came back from Switzerland, I had very few friends here, and I was working at the Sports Club Irvine, and I remember it was a holiday, it was either Easter or Christmas, and I didn't have anywhere, and I had nobody, and you invited me to your home for that. I never forgot your kindness and your friendship, so I want to always bring that up, and that means a lot to me. Yeah.
You were great to be around too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. But so it was interesting. So Jan and I met a couple of years after I started the program at the sports club. then we fell apart, and then I got into obedience and protection dog training because of my martial arts background. I think that kind of struck me. Then Janet was in agility, and we were talking.
Makes sense.
Out of the blue, right? Out of the blue, Janet and I are talking. She said, oh, I did agility and da-da-da-da. And Jimmy had this problem, and I went to this seminar by Desiree Snelleman, who helped me with these amazing little tricks that just helped Jimmy blossom. And I said, what was her name? And she said, Desiree Snelleman. And I said, is she Norwegian by chance? And she said, I think so. And I said, it is no way in the world it can be the same person. And it was.
And it was. Bingo. Yeah,
now,
I'm super glad you guys had that talk.
It's so amazing. But now tell me, were you always into dogs and dog training? Because I wasn't. I love dogs, but I was never into dog training. It was never a fun. How did you cross that let's call it the fjord, to get into dog training? What happened? Like, how did that come about?
Well, I had some dogs when I was very young and lived in Norway, and there was a Norwegian Buhund, and I think we had a little poodle, and etc. And then I had a boyfriend later on in my teens who I took care of his police dog that was a Doberman. And, I loved them. I really cared for them, but I really didn't go any further because my sports just consumed all of me. And, I take my things pretty serious, the ones that I do, and apply myself 100% to it, as I did as a kid, and it's still do today. So I kind of got away from that and just kept on going along with my sports. The dogs didn't really enter back into my life until 2002. And that was after, well, you and I already knew each other, and I left the Sports Club Irvine and then went to the corporate office and became the director of training and development. And at that time, actually, I think let's go back to, 1990 and 91 were my last 2 years that I did outrigger canoeing. And I walked off the team and I said, I can't do this anymore. My back is wrecked. My body was wrecked. I couldn't do a thing. And it was a special episode that started it. And then I wouldn't give up my training. I wouldn't give up my goals, and took the consequences for that. And basically didn't do very well physically. So then after I canceled myself out from the sports, you kind of go through an episode or a period of time where you go, well, who am I if I'm not an athlete? And trying that soul searching part, which was very, very difficult. And for probably about 4 years, I tried to go the route of the least invasive help with my back. I had a herniated disc, L5S1, and a lot of other injuries that became permanent because of the brutal sports that I partook in. And my own choice, of course. And so, gosh, then in 1995, I couldn't do anything anymore. I couldn't dress myself. I couldn't do a bunch of stuff. And it just came worse and worse. So I decided to have surgery, which I did in Newport Beach, California. Had a great doctor. And the unfortunate thing, though, coming back from that is I was very slow to heal. And I go, this just sucks. I really didn't like my position that I was in. And kind of was wondering, what was I going to do? So the first thing I did, and this is kind of the story leading up to it, is I went back to my doctor and I said, hey, what do you think about me doing scuba diving and trying that to come back from these injuries and from these surgeries? What do you think about that? And he looks at me kind of strange and he goes, I've never been asked that before. I said, well, what do you think? And he goes, okay, I'll let you do that, but you got to make sure that you're being loaded in the water and that you're suiting yourself up with your tank in the water and not on land. And I said, will do. Off we went, and that we spent 4 years of diving and did some liveaboards and underwater photography stuff with that. And then we became scuba divers in the Aquarium of the Pacific at Long Beach. We were volunteers. And that was an incredible journey too. And then one day when I quit actually working for the Sports Club company, which was probably about 2000. I looked at my spouse, Peggy, and I said, I think we need to get some dogs. I still don't feel I am where I need to be in my my athleticism coming back, at least the way I want to use my body. So I think we should think about getting two dogs, one for you, one for me. And that's kind of where the thought started. I, at the time, worked for a year remote with a Boston company. And so I kept on scrambling in the yellow pages to look for a trainer, a coach for our dogs. And we actually ended up, I don't know why, but we ended up with two Siberian Huskies, Ty and Chi. And they were brother, they were brother sister. And
Perfect.
Anybody that knows anything about anything
Nothing
about
better.
dogs, they go, well, yeah, you know what? Could you have done a better job at this? And we were fine with our choice. There was no choice not being right.
Right.
And that's that was kind of the start to it. And the story with those guys and us were just phenomenal because I knew I had a tough time with my back. I had to be very careful in walking them, leashing or walking on leash with them. But I wanted to do this as a way of coming back. And
With
dogs
the
are
intention of
puppies.
sports? Like, was your idea that you were getting
Yeah.
dogs for? So you thought, I'm going to get a dog and do some dog sports.
So sort of. It was more to see if I could rehabilitate myself to a point to where, a puppy will be a puppy and you got to be careful about how much exercise you do with them.
Right.
Same thing for humans, at least if you have some issues. So, and that was my thought. And then when I started getting into dog training, I am really loving this. I'm keen on this. This is something I think I could actually do. And so I went, the person that I hired, which was Dan Tambourine from Crossroads Training Center in Long Beach. He was kind of a mentor for me and had said, gosh, you should really think about becoming a dog trainer. And I go,
Wow.
well, I am kind of thinking about that, but what do I do to do that? And he said, how do you want to play with your dogs? How do you want to work with your dogs? And I said, I do a dog sport. I didn't know about agility. So he educated me on the fact that there was such thing as dog agility. And I said, what's that? He said, go and look at it. So he sent me out to SPCA LA in Long Beach, where I met Norika Osso and Jill and a whole bunch of people. And I stood on the sideline and I go, that looks pretty darn cool. And a friend of mine, Suzanne Birdsall, she came up and just said, hey, my name is Suzanne. Are you thinking about doing agility? I said, well, yeah, this looks pretty cool. And she goes, here, let's go. And that was kind of the beginning of it. That was
And
just
what year
the
was
beginning.
that? What year was that?
That was 2000. We got the pups in 2002. And this was probably more like 2000, almost 2003. No, 10 months later
Oh,
that I did
wow.
this. And so Dan said, do you want to become a dog trainer? I said, yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I will look into that. Um, and I did. And I said, well, where do I go for this? And he goes, well, you can stay with my program. Or if you say that you want to do dog agility or more dog sports, then I have a better suggestion for you in Terry Long. And I ended up meeting Terry Long and I did a 2.5 year internship with her for dog training. And alongside with going to APDT, to taking seminars with Bob Bailey, to see Gene Donaldson, great names. And then I just decided that this is what I needed to do. And so he referred me out to a person rather than sticking myself with him. So I was really, really pleased by that. So I'm thankful for Dan Tambourine in coaching me through that period of time
Wow.
and suggesting what I should be doing.
And now this
Yeah.
is all with your Siberian Husky.
Yeah, this was with the Siberian Huskies. And having my background being in coaching and teaching from the Norwegian sports, what is it called? Sports sciences. That really gave me kind of all the sides of sports. It gave me the understanding of teaching, coaching, and also being on the receiving end of that, of course. And so I felt that with my background and then my schooling from San Diego State, that all that put together should give me a good broad base to pursue a career with dogs.
Well,
And that's how it went.
I mean, I do think that, people who are disciplined, who lead a disciplined lifestyle, that's always a fascination of mine. People in disciplined lifestyles, such as sports or martial arts or art or anything, that it just carries over. I mean, what a wonderful gift and I think children lack that now. And I mean, people always criticize me for criticizing children because they're all just watching video games and becoming computer nerds and all that, which is great. I mean, it's really a different skill, but I just think being physical and tactile and getting your fingernails dirty and doing stuff and running and scraping your knees is so important for the human spirit. Don't you think that's true?
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yes.
I am totally ill. I don't see kids out there very much just having fun playing and or doing even sports at a variety of skills. I think we push everything into one direction. And I think that's the variety of sports, would be the same here probably as it would be in Norway. But the variety of sports that kids do and activities that they do in Norway are far, far beyond what you find here. And it's becoming more and more sedentary. Becoming more and more sedentary. I don't really feel that we're pushing that part of it enough in our community or in our society.
Yeah, I think it's a real
activity
shame.
is going out.
It's really going out, and I think it's just weakening us as people and making us more susceptible to sickness and depression and anger and all this stuff. Like
that's
people
right.
being caged up, like it's just crazy. But so now, okay, so you start off with a Siberian Husky, which I is probably, I'm not an agility expert by any means, but it's probably not the #1 dog you see on the podium at agility trials, is it?
No, it is typically not. But I will say this. I don't regret a minute of my time with these two dogs. They made us laugh. They made us humble. They make us work hard and persistent and consistent. And ultimately, it's not like the dogs broke down or gave in to us. They started enjoying being with us, the relationship part of it, which I spend a lot of time doing, and the teaching and learning each other and communication, which is so big. We did all of those things because these things come natural to me being a coach and a teacher for humans. So I employed the same thing with dogs, and actually dogs seem to be more responsive than humans.
I agree,
right?
1,000%. I mean, I use the exact same thing in teaching martial arts to kids the way I teach dogs. It's the exact same way. I think children learn through pictures, animals learn through pictures. I think it's just such an easy fit, right? It's just amazing.
Yes.
Now, did your partner also, your spouse also do dog sports with her dog?
She did. She had Chi, I had Ty, the boy. She had the girl, and the girl happened to be very, very independent. Not that Ty didn't, but I worked on that. So yes, she actually became the first Siberian Husky in the country to make her, what is it, an NW3 nosework title.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was her claim to fame, and I didn't do that with Ty, although he was very gifted. He was super gifted in agility, and I brought him all the way to, actually, it's not podium #1, but he got third place in the AKC National Championship in 2012 in 24 inches. And he took a third place in the Invitational, which is a huge event within the AKC system, in 2009. So he had 2 very big victories in his, and he was super consistent, loved doing it, and probably the best teacher that I could have found.
Wow, that's spectacular. That's now, I mean, and I do think that my first dog as an adult was a Shar-Pei, so it's a very stubborn, very hard dog, And I think sometimes when you start with those kind of dogs, it does kind of test you in a way. I mean, a husky is definitely very independent, not a dog I would imagine ever doing agility, or I've seen them do obedience here and there. They're not very good generally, but it's more of a proving ground. And for some people who would just give up, that's one thing. But you just took the bull by the horn, so to speak, and just made it work, which is spectacular.
Yeah, there's just no other way around it. I mean, you commit to these dogs, these animals, and you get so attached to them. And you know, being who I am, I just cannot do things half-assed. So I just went at it, and they were helping me as much as I was helping them. And it developed some really unique and fabulous relationships that probably are responsible for me being where I am today and having made a career since 2003, 2004, made that in the dog world, right? That would not have happened without my ability to train these two dogs.
Right. I mean, it's kind of, you know, life throws us these lessons, and we either learn from them and dominate, or we succumb to them and just and flounder,
fold over.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the challenge. It's the people who rise to the challenge that really kind of make it. The one other people just give up, and that I think that separates the winners from the competitors.
Yeah. You have to have a desire to make it work, and the interest in seeing how far you can take them. And when they become willing partners, there is just nothing like that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an amazing
and I've now had
bond.
a number of them, but right.
Now, agility is very different. I mean, I want you to kind of talk about, now you did you ever do competitive obedience or anything else with your dogs?
I did with Ty, my Siberian again, and he got an what did he get? CDX.
Okay, that's very good. That's very, very good.
Yeah, and I would have continued with him, but unfortunately, he passed away from gastric carcinoma in 2013, I believe it was. So he was 11 years old, and I was very unfortunate.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so he was brilliant at that. He was brilliant at nose work as well. And so he got pretty far. He got an NW2, but I didn't pursue 3 because I wanted to hold on to that until he would be retired. It would be a great retirement sport for him. Yeah. And then that really never happened. So that was sad, but she got to do that instead. So that was kind of a nice thing.
So
his sister.
To me, so now, did they pass away kind of around the same time, or what happened?
She became 13. So she hung on a little bit longer. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So I wouldn't say that was super old, but you know, when you're dealing with those type of cards, then there's nothing really you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huskies.
So very sad.
It's a very good age for a husky. 13 is amazing. But it's never long enough.
I think just never long enough. That's exactly right.
Could be 18. You're like, God, I can't believe it's only 18. Like Dachshund, we have a Dachshund Bosman who's 18, Janet's dog, and like now, you know, I have to feed him. I have to make his food. I have to make it every 2 or 3 days, and I have to like give him syringe water, and I have to hold him up to go to the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
But I can't imagine like not doing that, right? Not being that committed. He did agility. I don't know if you met him when Janet was doing agility when she did your seminar, your workshops, but he was he's the coolest dog. But he's 18, and people say, well, you know, what do you, and I said, it's not even in the conversation, right? Like I have to pick him up. I literally get more exercise with Boz than anything else, because I go from my desk to the little X pen and pick him, because every time he falls down, I walk over, pick him up, and then walk back to my desk, and about 5 minutes later, I get back up. It's the best cardio of the day. I just like every 5 minutes, I get him and pick him up. But you form this amazing bond with these animals. Like how do you live without that, right? I mean, I don't get that's missing in some people's lives. I think the world would be a better place if everybody had that passion for their dogs.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it's interesting that you were calling him Boss, because I have a very good student of mine that actually is from Southern California that I've known for a long time, that also has a dachshund. He has several of them actually, but 2 females. And her name is Bossa. Oh, and she's been on the Invitational, and she has been, so I'm very familiar with these guys, and they are a hoot.
They're a hoot. Yeah, they really are. I always say they're like mini Malinois. They're like just these little, like they're just crazy energy and stuff like that. But what I want to talk to you about, or ask you about, and this is like what always intrigues me, and I asked this to Dave Latham, and I asked this to every person who I consider is a master at what they do. And that is, what is the mindset that you have when you get into, that means Janet's home. When Janet's home, everybody barks. And people say, how do you get your dogs to stop barking when people come to the door? This is how I do it. I just let them bark. I think it's an alarm system.
It's a great prompt for you.
Oh, it's a great prompt. It's like, I got to go put the Fritos and the beer away because Janet's home. Clean the house really quick, put tidy everything up. Janet's home. I told her I was going to be interviewing, so she might actually pop down. She was just doing hunting training, so she was.
Oh, nice.
She's just coming back now. She's doing really good at that. The question for you, and it's a question I've been asked often, but it intrigues me. What's the mindset, right? Like, what is it that differentiates you from another competitor? And right? When you go to an agility trial or something, there's these other people, and then there's you. And I know that from my martial arts and from everything I've done. How do you explain it? How do you put to words that mindset, that winning factor, that you're going in it to win it, right? How do you explain that?
I think for me, it was developed at an early age. And I've always had to work hard for anything that I wanted to accomplish, which is not a bad thing. I realized that having to work hard made you stronger. And that's kind of the theme that has gone through all of my sports. I didn't exactly pick the sports that were the easiest for you to execute. They were very tough and very hard, and you just have to persevere. I like working hard. I mean, it's truly part of me. I think very much like a dog. If I don't get my exercise or my outlet, I just don't feel good, and something is missing. A big part of my life is missing. So for me, my athletics have become my mantra. It has become who I am. And that means work hard and get the job done. So I love teamwork, and I've done my team sports. I've done my individual sports, but by far my most favorite sport of all, sitting here now today, I would say has been dog agility. And the lessons it had taught me and where it's gotten me, where, you're dealing with two different species, you're dealing with two different languages. And I think those people who really apply themselves and are good listeners, observers, communicators with their animals or with humans, right? We typically do pretty well after that. And I am willing to listen. In fact, there's a kind of a funny story with how it developed with pace, because I went, as you know, from my Siberians, I got my first Border Collie because people felt that being the athlete that I was, that I should have a Border Collie, by golly. I should not hang around with a Siberian.
Right.
And I was pretty happy. I was super happy with my Siberian, so that was not a problem. But so I did end up getting a Border Collie, and that changed things here and there. But training is training. And if you have a neck for it, if you have an eye for it, if you have a desire for it. And for me, it brought me back to becoming an athlete. So working hard through therapy, physical therapy, and working hard through accomplishing things, I think has always just been part of me. And I don't regret that at all. I wouldn't do anything different in a different life.
Right. I always say that if I had to live my life over again, I would do it the exact same way. There's not one thing I would change in my life. I mean,
no regrets.
I have no regrets. If tomorrow I die, I live today the way I wanted to live it. In other words, I don't want to go, I should have done, I should have da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, I feel so sorry for those people, like people who live and work so that they can retire. I mean, I live my retirement I work my butt off, and I know you do too, but it's really about living this minute like you might not have that next minute, isn't it?
Right. Yes. And also being able to do and applying yourself. So when you talk about sports, or in particular, like a technical one, like you're dealing with agility, dog agility, I look at that as a puzzle. And puzzles are so good for the mind. And puzzles are maybe not active enough for us. But agility is that puzzle to me that will accomplish both of those sides of the story, where you have the physical puzzle, you have the mental puzzle, and then you have the species puzzle, and all that. And what I find, not just in myself, but in a lot of my students, that many of them are in their 50s, 60s, 70s,
Wow.
and doing competitive agility, and proud of them. and they're there for the same reasons. They want to stay active. They want to stay engaged. They want to become laser sharp in what they do.
Yeah.
And it helps using our mind. It helps using our body. I just think it is a very wholesome experience.
You know what I think is interesting, because you just said something, 50s, 60s, and 70s. You know, those are the ages, I mean, I think we're around the same age, where, you know, like those
Yeah.
are our people, right? Like these are the people who were active. Like I don't see many, you know, obedience, IPO, ring sports and stuff like that. So maybe a little bit more in the ring sports, but agility, I see a lot of people in their 50s and 60s and 70s doing these sports, which is so amazing, because you would think, man, but I think, you know, you said something about the puzzle, and Janet brought this up to me. The fascinating thing I find about agility that makes me intrigued, because people, I had somebody watch Janet and I doing it once, or Janet doing it once, and I was there, and he said, oh, you just tell your dog to go over the things, right? And, you know, when you look at it, it kind of looks like, you know, like, oh, you just kind of run with them and they
Easy.
go to this one and this one. It's so, I mean, come on. He's just jumping over the little, my dog likes to jump. He can do agility, right? It's like,
How hard can it be?
How hard can it be, right? Until you get out there and you figure out that it is like the art of war. It's really like your Sun Tzu. You are really strategizing how the dog's going to go over that, and you're planning the next 3, 4, 5 moves after that jump, right? I mean, talk about that, because that, I think, is the #1 thing that's overlooked, where people think, oh, big deal, the dog's just jumping over a jump. Talk about the strategy of this art of war that agility really is.
Well, there's so many factors, and especially because you're dealing with 2 different species. We have our own communication sets between each team, I'm sure. And to me, when they're puppies, I think that is where it's established. So I start the communication part of it very early on. I want a dog that is a thinker, that can think through things and not just blow themselves out. And I want a partner. I want a teammate. And I will be very willing to give all that back to my dog. And most people are. So here's the cognitive part of it, or the process of the mental part of it is such a huge part of this. In particular, when you're getting into the 50, 60, 70, maybe even plus years of age, people are out there doing it because they are probably retired or almost retired. They may have a motorhome or an RV, and they travel with these dogs all over the country, right? And if it's not all over the country, it's definitely all over their state or yonder. And that mental piece of agility is a huge piece. And what seems so trivial to me is that many don't trust their dog, in spite of them having been trained. And to me, that is the first thing that happens to me. I will teach my dog, play with my dog, work with my dog, be with my dog in a way that I know I will trust them 100%. And I need to also trust myself. But that trust, the 5-letter word, is just very, very provocative in our sport, because as soon as it comes into the trust scenario, things will go wrong. We got to trust our dogs when we're out there. You got to trust yourself. And if that is not happening, agility becomes difficult because there's so many pieces to it, right? It's an intricate sport. It is easy to learn. I mean, it is easy to learn and easy to teach at the fundamental level. But as you get higher and higher, right? It's not that way anymore. And the mental piece, I have found as an instructor and a coach and an advisor, is where I have the biggest challenges. I fight more with mental challenges that people have than I fight with their ability to do stuff, right? Or dogs to do the skills that they're trained to do. So yes, it's probably one of the biggest factors in agility, whether you will be successful or not.
I like what you said about trust, because there is that component that, you know, if you're running next to your dog or watching the dog or kind of moving him from obstacle to obstacle, that's one thing. But at the level that you're competing at, I mean, when I watch you run, it's literally like watching an amazing ballet or something, because there's so many moving pieces that, you know, the ballerina jumps up, and if the guy isn't paying attention, she's going to land on her face. And, but there's those times where you're just trusting your dog because you're like 15 steps ahead of him. The dog's back here doing weave poles and doing an A-frame and running a tunnel without you really micromanaging the dog, right? You set them into their position, right? And they're on that path, and you know what that path is when you're 10 steps ahead of him, and you know where he's coming and he's going to be crossing. And, I mean, how do you, at what age or, what things can you do with a young dog to start to develop that like what you said, it's this cross-species relationship, which is so amazing, that you build that trust, you build that connection, that you have that confidence in that dog. What's the key to that, really?
I think, well, it is innate in people to have distrust, right? And if they're not in control of something, then they're not trusting something, whether it is caused by ourselves or it's caused by a dog. So very early on, I mean, as soon as I get my puppy at about 7.5 to 8 weeks, I start that process because to me, it's an inherent thing. I have to trust. And
what does that look like?
I know my dog will trust me.
What does that look like? Because that's such important.
So, yeah, you play with them. You work with them. You get them to know you. You get to know them. You teach them how to learn. They learn through you. And, I think trust comes from knowing that your dog will perform the things that you're telling them to do or asking them to do, right? But all of that comes down to, which is so funny to me, is that trust should be built from the beginning in our teaching them what to do with our expectations and whatnot. And so that we don't trust them tells me you're not trusting yourself and your training. You're not sure if what you taught your dog is the right thing. And, then to distrust your dog for that doesn't work. It never turns out well. So yeah, from they're very small, I do a lot of relationship building with them and a lot of communication and a lot of just play and chase. But I also create value in myself so that I know they want to spend time with me. It doesn't come easy. You got to work and put some elbow grease into it because a relationship sometimes doesn't come easy, whether it's a human or canine human.
But address for a second, because I think a lot of people who hear what you're saying, this is something that I think I've been guilty of in the past, and I've caught myself. But talk about the idea of overtraining, because I think sometimes when you have a puppy, people do so much with their puppies, whether it's a pet dog or a competitive dog, and then, you know what I mean? And then like about 6 weeks later, it's like, well, you know what? I got this really great drone that I'm starting to fly, and it's really fun to fly. And the puppy's kind of, yesterday's news. Talk about like not overdoing it, but this whole idea of structure, like you're building upon, like you're not going to put somebody on the bench press and say, okay, hit 200 pounds. You can do it 10 reps because you're going to kill them. But working up to that, like what's your process with that, with your dogs or with clients' dogs or with, especially with top level obedience, competitive agility dogs like you're dealing with, what are those building blocks? What are those steps?
Well, I guess, first of all, you need to have a little bit of understanding of what the different time frames in a puppy's life, what happens in a different time frames. So when you just get them home, they need to romp around. They need to learn their environment. They learn to go potty training. They learn all the basics in life. But alongside with that, it is always the idea should be to have that relationship continue to build. And within relationship is also teaching them certain things like potty training, simplistically, or crate training, or fetching maybe a ball or an item or whatever it is. So I start very small, but each morning at say 4:30, I would get up with any of my dogs and I'd take them aside from the rest. Yeah, they're not sleeping anymore. Neither am I. And so together we were in the living room and we do all this stuff. I move around. I have him target my hand. I have him target my foot. I have him target or look at me. I have my puppy go into a box or into a bowl, go under stuff, in stuff. walk on stuff, just to get them a little bit bold and confident. And then from there, you kind of just foster them. And that's why I said earlier, what was essential to me is that I not only did I build up myself, and Peggy built herself back up from our injuries and surgeries, but the dogs grew up with us. We couldn't just all do it in one day. I really believe that people are overdoing it, like you're saying, and then they become neurotic in a different way. It's an overdone state, and they cannot be left alone. They don't have an off switch. So I think gauging your dog, understanding what they can do through certain phases of their age, I think that is critical. And there's so much mental work we can do with them, and teaching them just the basics of life is plenty for a while.
Right. I mean, it's just that crazy, and I think it's a very Americanized thing. And I'm not here to slam Americans, because I'm American, but it's like that all or nothing thing. Like, it's just all, I call it balls to the wall. It's like, just go, just, we're going to do everything. We're going to learn everything. We're going to do everything. And then it's nothing, right? It's like that black and white, that crazy thing. And I think it's so damaging, again, going back to the human spirit. Like, oh, you know what? I'm going on a diet. I'm not going to eat any carbohydrates for the, it's like, it's not like I'm going to cut back on things. I'm going to go to the gym a few times. It's the January 2nd, the gyms are full and everybody's going to get in shape, and they hire the trainers. And then by, January 11th, it's, well, we're back at the bar, we're eating nachos and beer.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. And I think that if many of us don't know about our own body, how are we going to know about the dog's body and understand that we're overloading them or underloading them? We got to take feedback and inventory all the time and make adjustments. And progression is the key. No matter what, you move forward 2 steps, you move back 3 steps, you move forward 4 steps, you move back 1 step.
Right.
And that giveth and taketh, and evaluating where your dog is. And maybe part of that is knowledge too. What should they specifically be doing during this time frame of their life? How much is too much?
Right.
And how much is not enough?
But so that's an important piece. How do people, and I'm going to have you back on, because I could go for 2 more hours, and I'm thinking I want to pace people with this. But how can people learn, and let's just focus on agility. How can people learn what they should be doing if they can't find a club, like, for example? And I mean, what are some things they can do? I know there's some online resources.
Yes.
Do you have anything available? Do you recommend anything where, hey, you know what, maybe I've got an active dog, maybe I should just look into this? And what would be a step that you would advise for somebody?
I would probably look in areas where you could find a person that is a certified instructor, like a conditioning instructor or exercise. And usually what happens is that many of those specialists for dog agility or for dog sports or for exercise of dogs, they are professionals in another way. So they could be physical therapists and have gone from the people side of things to the dog side of things. We have a number of those. We also have a school, I think it's in Tennessee, where they educate, what are they called? It doesn't come to the top of my head right now, but they're a specialist on training of dogs or rehab of dogs. And those guys would be really good people to start with. I'm not going to name names because I think that all over the nation we will have these people. Yeah. Where specifically to find these sources, I am not so sure. Right. And that's a very good question. But they are out there. Yeah,
I guess if you have to, when you look, you'll find the master, right? You have to keep to search the master, and search for the master.
Yeah, and many of them are seminars presenters too, so they take this on the road. And I think that would maybe be a good way to get exposed to all of this, because it is a big question.
So the big
we do the best we can, but
right.
Go ahead.
I mean, the big organizations really are AKC and ASCA. Are those the two biggest for agility?
Well, you have AKC and you have USDAA.
USDAA, that's what I meant.
Yeah, and then you have UKI and ASCA and NADAC. So there are 5 of them that are pretty
Okay.
big, and they all go in different directions.
But that might be a resource to look up those websites and then look if they're having
Yes,
seminars in their
sure.
area and such, right? I mean, that would give people an indication.
Yeah,
So what I
yeah.
want to do, I want to do something kind of interesting. I want to close our conversation with you telling me a little bit about your amazing, we're telling the audience about your amazing accomplishments, which will dovetail you to have to come back and talk about being at the World Championships and all that stuff. Just tell me, lead up to it, and then that will be we'll prime the pump for our next conversation, because I will certainly hope that you'll come back on again, because this is such a fun conversation with just an old friend, and I don't mean an old friend, but like a friend from a long time.
Well, thanks. Yeah, good recovery there.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, like I said, I went on from having just 2 dogs with my spouse to getting our third, which was a border. And I actually ended up getting 4 dogs from this particular breeder because she was a responsible breeder and had great, great dogs. And all of my dogs have been champions. They're champions even if they aren't on the podium. But
Sure.
the key of the whole thing is we are playing this game that becomes pretty intense, and it is every year it becomes bigger and bigger and faster, requires more and more. It's becoming an incredibly evolution in agility, how far it has gone, and so much trick training and so many skills. So anyways, I had Stinger coming to our lives in 2005. He took me on a journey for Siberians, and here's just kind of, no, for Border Collies. And here's kind of a funny story. When I got him, I had gotten accustomed to doing a lot of rear crosses, meaning putting myself behind my dog and allowing my dog to get ahead. Well, with the Siberian, I thought that may be a really good idea because they're generally, when they do their thing, they're ahead, and we have to learn to trust them, right? So that was my novel idea. And it went really well with rear crosses. Then I get a faster dog because of how they're built and the breed and all that. And Stinger was fast, and he was very devoted. He was an amazing, focused young man. And I had to change my tactics a little bit. So I had to learn to actually run out ahead of my dog, which I love doing. But it took a little while of getting used to. So here is Stinger, and I'm running ahead of him, and we are having great success. And I liked it. And then I go, I'm going to convert my Siberian Husky to running from behind to running in front. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, it didn't go so well for a while. Not so well for a while until I learned, or he learned, that this was just going to be how it was. And he surrendered. And, it took me a while to coax him into this. But once he got the concept, he goes, this is pretty cool too. Right. And so that's where I think I was able to get him to the level that he got, is learning to run ahead of your dog, staying ahead of your dog, because you simply can give better information and communicate your intent or intentions better that way, for the most part. Right. So that is kind of where it's at. And Stinger took me to a national championship in USDA team, both relay and the team event in 2000, was it 12 or 11? 11. And then Ty took me to the national championships in his thing, the Siberian. And then from there on, it went into Dime and Pace and Crew, and now my young dog, Peak. So, there's a lot in between there. But I have used pretty much the same formula, and that is to listen to your dog. Ask your dog to help you figure out a way to train him. That's what I did with Pace eventually, and it paid off amazingly. Amazingly. So it's just the ability to open yourself up and say, how can I be a better listener? How can I be a better coach to you? How can you be a coach back to me? And it's simply, can I take feedback in seeing what my dog does and immediately be able to determine cause and effect? Okay, this happened because I, the handler, did X, Y, and Z. Or I saw what happened and the cause was my dog wasn't paying attention, right? Or any of those things. But the bottom line is, when we set ourselves up to listen to our dogs and look at them and say, you're helping me with this, I'm not just on my own here.
Right.
that's when you start learning. And it has been an incredible learning journey.
And it's a
I
team,
wouldn't want to be without it.
right? I mean,
It's completely a team.
it's
Yeah.
so much a team, and it's different, I think, than horseback riding in the sense that you're actually letting this dog, this other animal, function away from you, and knowing, predicting what this animal will do based on your relationship, based on your communication. You know where he's coming, you know what foot he's going to be on, you know what his speed is going to be, and all that. I mean, I would like to talk more about like competing at those high level things. I mean, here we really covered so much about relationships and so much about mindset and about, about our background as athletes and martial artists and stuff. But I really want to tap into that whole, that upper level competition, like what it's like and how it separates. And it's a game of tenths of seconds that you're dealing with. You're not even dealing with seconds anymore, right?
Yeah. Nanosecond.
Nanosecond. It's incredible. So,
yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
I'm going to kind of put you on the spot and ask if you will come back in the next few weeks to talk some more about this.
All right.
Okay, good.
Twist my arm.
yeah. Long distance on twisting your arm. So let's end it on that, because this was just an amazing chat, and I mean, you know who's going to really love this is Janet. I mean, she's going to dive right into this. It's going to be really intriguing for her as well. But for all the viewers who are listening, I'm going to put some links up. Do you have a training center in Washington where you live? We can share that. I want to get some videos, maybe, or pictures, and post them in here to show, just how amazingly spectacular it is to watch somebody at your level running for less than a minute, and you're spending 10 years to train for that that 20, 30-second run, because it's absolutely perfection at every single step you take. So that's what separates the winners from the people who aren't really trying hard, because it's a game, and it's a lifestyle. So anyway, guys, I hope don't hang up just yet. Desiree, just 1 second. I'm going to wrap up here.
Oh, I won't.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. I thank you, Desiree, for being here. It was just a spectacular show. I learned a lot. I took a lot away from it. We're going to have Desiree back for more. In the meantime, check out all the podcasts. Check out my website, robertcabral.com. Check the links in the description below for more information about Desiree Snelleman and all her amazing work. And I'll see you next week. Take care.